Imagine living in a world where a mysterious and deadly disease is spreading like wildfire, killing millions of people in a matter of years. A disease that causes agonizing pain, gruesome symptoms, and certain death. A disease that has no cure, no prevention, and no mercy. This was the reality for the people of Europe and Asia in the 14th century, when the Black Death ravaged their lands and changed their lives forever. In this video, we will explore the origin, spread, and impact of the Black Death, one of the most devastating events in human history. The Black Death was a deadly pandemic that occurred in Europe and Asia between 1347 and 1351. It is believed to have originated in Central Asia. It is commonly associated with the bacterium called Yersinia pestis, which causes bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic plagues. The disease likely spread through fleas infesting humans. From Central Asia, it traversed trade routes, reaching Crimea in 1343 and eventually spreading to Europe by 1347. The movements of armies, trade and migrations contributed to the rapid dissemination of the Black Death across continents. The Black Death killed about 40% to 60% of the European population and about 33% of the Middle Eastern population, and had significant social, economic, and religious impacts on the affected regions. The plague originated in Asia and spread along the trade routes of the Near and Far East. It reached Europe in 1347, when 12 ships from the Black Sea docked at the Sicilian port of Messina. Most of the sailors were dead or dying, and the disease soon spread to the mainland and other Mediterranean islands. Within a year, the plague had reached France, Spain, England, Germany, and Scandinavia. It also spread to North Africa and the Middle East by 1350. The plague had killed about 1/3 of Europe's population and about 10% of the world's population. The first signs of the plague were swollen lymph nodes, called buboes, in the groin, armpit, or neck. These were followed by fever, chills, vomiting, diarrhea, and black spots on the skin. The disease was highly contagious and often fatal, with a mortality rate of 50% to 90%. There was no effective treatment or cure for the plague, and people often died within a few days of infection. Now you might be wondering, what did the doctors do to stop this pandemic? Well, the truth is, they did not have much clue about the nature and spread of the disease, and their methods were mostly ineffective and sometimes harmful. The doctors at that time were based on medical theories and techniques that dated back to ancient Greece and Rome. They believed that the disease was caused by an imbalance of the 4 bodily humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. They also believed that the disease was spread by bad air, or miasma, which was a foul-smelling vapor that came from rotting corpses, garbage, or swamps. To cure or prevent the disease, the doctors tried various methods, such as bloodletting, which was the practice of cutting open a vein or an artery to drain blood from the patient. The doctors thought that this would balance the humors and remove the toxins from the body. However, this often resulted in infection, weakness, and death. Draining the buboes. These were the painful swellings that appeared in the lymph nodes of the patients. The doctors thought that these were the source of the infection and tried to cut them open and squeeze out the pus. However, this also exposed the patients and the doctors to more infection and risk. Using potions and herbs. The doctors prescribed various concoctions and mixtures of herbs, spices, minerals, and animal parts to the patients. Some of these were harmless, but some were poisonous or had side effects. For example, one of the common remedies was theriac, which was a paste made of opium, honey, viper flesh, and other ingredients. Wearing protective costumes, some doctors wore special outfits that covered their entire body and had a beak-like mask. They filled the mask with aromatic herbs or vinegar to filter out the bad air. They also carried a stick or a cane to examine the patients. or to ward off the infected. However, these costumes did not really protect them from the disease, as they did not understand that the disease was transmitted by fleas and not by air. As you can see, the doctors at that time did not have much success in curing or preventing the Black Death. In fact, many of them died of the disease themselves or fled from the infected areas. Some of them also exploited the situation and charged high fees or stole from the patients. The Black Death caused a huge loss of life and disrupted the social order. Many families and communities were torn apart by the disease as people avoided or abandoned their sick relatives and neighbors. Some people blamed the Jews, Muslims, or other minorities for the plague and persecuted and killed them. Others turned to religion, mysticism, or superstition and sought the help of God, saints, or charms. The plague also created a labor shortage, which increased the wages and bargaining power of the surviving workers. This led to social unrest and revolts, such as the Peasants' Revolt in England in 1381. The Black Death affected the economy of Europe and Asia in many ways. It reduced the population and the demand for goods and services. It also disrupted the trade and commerce, as many ports and markets were closed or avoided. It also damaged the agriculture and the food supply, as many farms and fields were left uncultivated or destroyed by the plague. The plague also increased the inflation and the prices of essential items, such as food and clothing. The plague also changed the structure and distribution of wealth, as many nobles and landlords lost their income and power, while many merchants and artisans gained more wealth and influence. The Black Death influenced the culture and the arts of Europe and Asia in various ways. It inspired many artistic and literary works, such as the Decameron by Boccaccio, the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer, and the paintings of Borch and Bruegel. These works reflected the horror, the suffering, and the humor of the people during the plague. The plague also encouraged the development of science and medicine, as people sought to understand and prevent the disease. The plague also fostered the growth of humanism and individualism, as people questioned the authority and the role of the church and the state. The Black Death was one of the most devastating events in human history, killing millions of people in Europe and Asia in the 14th century. It was caused by a deadly bacterium that was spread by fleas on rats and other rodents. It affected people of all classes and backgrounds, and had a huge impact on the social, economic, and cultural aspects of life. It was not the end of the plague, as it continued to recur periodically until the 18th century. However, it was the most severe and widespread outbreak of the disease, and it changed the course of history. The Black Death taught us many lessons, such as the importance of hygiene, sanitation, and public health, the need for scientific inquiry and rational thinking, and the value of human life and dignity. It also reminds us of the fragility and resilience of human civilization and the challenges and opportunities that we face in times of crisis.